For Chapter 13 Minitab, you're going to look at ordinal variables, and you're going to have to create these like we did in Chapter 12. And for the first part, I'm going to use the Human Services Expenditure Spending Levels that I created, the same variable I created back in Chapter 12. And if you remember, I'm just looking at the handout right now. Rather than redoing it, I saved it in my spreadsheet. But I went ahead and I used the Human Services Expenditure, I did the rankings, and then I created that new variable using data recode to text, used the ranks, stored the recodes in a column in my spreadsheet, and I'm going to use that particular variable in this analysis for question number 1, and I'm going to look at the Human Services expending levels and the region of the state. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to, the first thing it asked me to do was to create a contingency table. So I'm going to go to Stat, Tables, Crosstab and chi-square, and I'm going to use that Human Services level, which I had actually stored down here in C70, and I'm going to do it against the regions of the state, which are located back up here in C30. And I'm going to display counts and row percents, and you have some other options here if you'd like to change those. And then just hit OK. And then if I look in my output window here, I'll see my table. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the handout that you've got to look at, but there's the instructions to use, and then here's the output table here. And we want to talk about what we see. And so if we look at that table, and again, if I make this larger so I can see everything at once, and you'll notice in a minute I'm going to talk about this some more too, there is one county, Tyrell, that has missing human services data, expenditure data. And so if I look at this, we see that the expenditures from the low to high are evenly distributed across the 48 coastal, if you look at the coastal counties, but we see a different pattern in the mountains. In the mountains we have more counties in the low category. In the plains we have more counties in the high, medium and high levels. So we see a little bit of difference across the state for the human services expenditures. Now the second part of the homework asks you to create some new income variables by taking at least 2 measures of county wealth, and I would suggest using one of the income variables and then one of the poverty measures, and categorizing the county as low, medium, or high, etc. And I'm just going to go ahead and use the human services level that I used in question 1, and I'm going to look at the variable percent migration that's found in C3 by the human services level. So the first thing that I want to do is let's create a graphical display similar to figure 13.1, which is box plots. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to Graph, and I'm going to select box plot, and I'm going to do it with groups, and I'm going to pick my C3. I'm using the percent migration. You're going to look at you're going to be looking at the effect on registered voters who actually vote. So your variable up here is going to be the voting variable, and then down here you're going to have your categorical variable for either wealth or poverty. And then I want you to go ahead and click on let's see, I wanted to pick this one, and then I wanted you to pick some options. I think it's on data view. Yeah, data view. I want you to pick interquartile range box, the outlier symbols, and then also a mean symbol. This will make your display nice. And I'm going to hit OK. And then one other thing on mine, because I have that missing information, I'm going to click on data options. And I'm going to exclude the row in which that missing value is. And it actually, when I searched in the data set, it's in row 89. It's the county of Tyrell. And I'm going to exclude it because it doesn't have any information to graph. And then if I hit OK, I get a nice display. So my mean is here, my median, here's some outliers here in the low group. There's an outlier here in the high group. And notice here it also tells me that it excluded that one row. Then the other thing it asks you to do in this question is to generate an analysis of variance table similar to 13.2 in your book and describe the results. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Stat, ANOVA, Analysis of Variance, one way, and we're going to put in our response variable here, and in your case you're going to be looking at the percent of the voters, the percent of people voting, and your factors are going to be either your poverty or your wealth factor. I'm using human services. And I think that's all you need to really identify here. And then just hit OK. And it'll give you a nice graph. And this graph is kind of nice because it shows us as the human service level spending increases, the percent migration decreases, which sort of makes sense. The more wealthy the county is, you would think the less migration there would be. And then I have my output over here. Here's my null hypothesis, my alternative, the alpha level. There was one missing row, which we knew about. And here's my analysis of variance table. Here's my F statistic. Here's my p-value. My p-value is not very small, so therefore I would fail to reject the null. And in fact, if I look at the confidence intervals on the three levels, I see that they overlap. And so therefore I can see that although it does seem to be decreasing the percent migration, it's not a significant decrease when measured statistically. So hopefully this will help you as you're working on your Chapter 13